So when it comes to Fox body installations, there's a few things that people agree they're just not fun to do. One of them, for example, is going to be a heater core. I'll tell you right now, I'd rather do 2 heater cores than the video we're going to do today. So today we're going to tackle T-top weather stripping. If you've ever done this install, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's very time consuming, it's very messy, and it's very hard to get right. Now, let's be honest, these cars have been around, they made them from 81 through 88. And as they got older, the T-tops made the car a little more flexible. And when you do this installation, you'll start to understand why they don't make T-tops anymore. Now, when these cars were brand new, the Weatherstrip still didn't fit that great. And as they got older, it just got worse. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take you through step by step on how to replace the T-top Weatherstrip, the door Weatherstrip, and then the hardest part is actually getting the glass and everything to fit properly. Before we jump into the installation video, if you have any questions about the tools we're using, check out cjponyparts.com/tools or click the link up in the corner for a free exclusive PDF and video showing you the tools you should have in your toolbox and how to safely and properly use them. So a couple things before we get into this installation. First of all, this is time consuming and frustrating, so plan ahead. Don't think on a Friday night you're gonna bang this out and drive the car Saturday morning. It's not gonna happen. Give yourself, honestly, the better part of a weekend to do this job. It's gonna take a lot of time to get it right. Once you finish the weather stripping, honestly, you're about halfway done because then you have to align the glass to the new weather stripping and it's gonna be different. The chances of your door lining up with a replacement weather stripping is pretty much almost zero. I've never seen it happen before. It's probably not gonna happen. So assume you're gonna have some time involved in that adjustment. Also keep in mind, this is an install where good enough might have to be good enough. Getting these things perfect, like I said, they weren't perfect when they were new. So getting them perfect, 30, 40 years later, it's gonna be tough. But get the sealing as good as possible, and either way, it's gonna be better than before. Another thing you want to plan for, once we start taking this apart, there may be some rust or some other areas that have to be repaired. So again, this is one of those jobs, give yourself some time. If you have a car that you don't drive year round, do this in the off season. But again, take your time, follow the video, hopefully you can probably do this at home. So the first step in the process is obviously to remove the T-top. And if that's challenging for you, this install is not for you. But after that, remove the front and rear caps. So now we're gonna remove the actual T-top weather strip. Now something I'll mention here, the door weather strip on your car, it could be 2 ways. It could go all the way up to the T-top or it could stop at the bottom of the pillar. So we're gonna start by pulling off the T-top weather strip. This is all just press fit, so get a grip on it. Start pulling it out. It may have been glued, so it may come out in pieces. Plastic pry bars are going to be used extensively in this install, so make sure you got a good set. And you'll start to see this. I'm not sure if the camera's close enough, but you're gonna find lots of silicone all over this install. You can find it on the ends, the corners. Quite often on these cars, if they were leaking, people thought wherever's leaking, I'm just gonna fill it with silicone and that's gonna fix the problem, which we all know it doesn't. At this point, this is why you wanna cover your interior for this installation. It's gonna come across in pieces and you're gonna dump stuff all over the place. So if you don't care about your interior, vacuum it out when you're done. If you have a nice interior like this car does, make sure you cover everything, keep it a lot cleaner. If it starts falling apart, especially in this area where it's heavily silicone, you can try grabbing in the middle. This is often not really glued. Sometimes you can get a grip with your fingers even. Give it a good tug. Now this is gonna fall apart no matter what, but kind of work your way around. At the bottom of the B pillar, we're gonna try pulling from up here. It's gonna be this little plastic clip. So you wanna get in there behind that, kind of work that out. Start from back here. You can see with our car, our door weather strip actually goes all the way up to the actual T-top. Again, it can come both ways. We're gonna do it the same way this one either was from the factory or is now. We're gonna keep it that way. At this point, you're probably starting to understand why people don't want to do this. Now on the C channel right here on the B pillar, don't worry about getting this too clean because this is gonna come off and we're gonna clean it off the car. Just make sure all the screws are visible. We got two here, we got one kind of hidden right there in the middle. Make sure the screws are accessible. The rest does not matter. And same thing over here on the A-pillar. There's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4 screws to remove this C-channel we're gonna clean off the car. So once these screws are cleaned off and visible, you may need to get a pick to actually get in there so the Phillips head bit can grab. Next, we'll remove these channels. I'm gonna use a knife here just to kinda clean out the screws. Unfortunately, these have gotten somewhat rusty from leaks over the years. So we're gonna try to clean this up a little bit more because this one screw's not cooperating. This is a silly little trick that I hate to say came from TikTok, but get an old valve stem, it actually becomes like a rubber wheel on the edge of your drill, and it's good for cleaning surfaces. With the screws out, we can remove the C channel, but it actually is held on by double stick tape and there's also silicone in here. I also should mention this part actually should be black. You can see all the paint's coming off because at one point when the car was repainted, they painted a body color. We're gonna take it back to the correct trim black. Basically start at the bottom. Carefully work it off. Here you can see what's kind of left in this channel. Now the entire channel kind of looks like this. The A pillar and B pillar C channels though, we can remove them, clean them off the car, which is way easier. Just like the other channel, this one is going to be siliconed on and stuck on as well. And here again, the padded weather strip underneath it. Start taking this off too. And like everything else, it's probably gonna come off in pieces. So here's the door weather strip, and as you can see, it comes pretty much all the way up to the T-top. Sometimes they do stop at the bottom. Ours actually is ripped down here, but we're gonna copy the way this is. This is a lower mileage car. This might be original weather stripping. I don't know for sure, but I'm gonna guess that it probably is. But this is the way it was done on this car, so we're gonna do it that way again when we replace it. So to remove the door weather strip, we have to loosen the screws in the quarter trim panel, take off the door sill plate, take off our A pillar. So being more of a race car, we don't have a kick panel, but if you do, remove the kick panel, that'll come up to here. Then we're gonna remove this screw to take the speaker grill off to make it easier to remove our A-pillar trim. To get to the top of the pillar, goes underneath this headliner retainer. Just get your fingers in there. Carefully pop it down. So you have to loosen up, again, the quarter trim panel here to get the weather stripping out. Our car has Scott rod panels in it, so it's gonna be a little different than what you have. You'll have to remove the seatbelt bolts up top here, and there'll be a couple little small trim screws on the way down. I'm gonna start at the top here, which I guarantee is gonna be caked in silicone. And the rest of this should just be pressed on. Once you get it, you should be able to go around pretty easily. Look at this end, this will probably, once again, have some silicone on it. Actually wasn't that bad. Now, if you did manage to get this off in one piece, which honestly you should be able to because most of this is just gonna be pressed on, keep this, don't throw it away. We can actually use this as a template for our new door weather strip. They don't make T-top or convertible specific door weather strip, so you have to use the hardtop hatch style or coupe style, and that's gonna be a one piece that would have gone all the way around. So obviously this is gonna be shorter, so we can use this as a template to get close to where we're gonna cut it. All right, so next one of the things that suck about this install is gonna be these felt weather strip. These are gonna be front and back, and it's one piece. It goes all the way across the front and all the way across the back. These are gonna be riveted on. So to replace them, you have to drill the rivets. Now, if by some chance these are in good shape on your car, leave them alone, but that's not gonna happen. So you will have to drill these out, and we'll show you how to remove these panels, and then we'll replace them once we start cleaning everything else up. So we have a rivet here, one here, and then two at this end. Now, one of these often gets covered in the wonderful silicone that's on everything on this install, so you may have to scrape a little bit to find it. And for this job, I should mention, 1/8 inch drill bit will do, basically, usually will do the job on these rivets. The thing I'll mention here is just be careful not to go too far with this. So something I'll mention quick, if you haven't noticed, we actually did the other side already because this is one piece, and like I said, it goes all the way across. And this piece will have a thin metal backing, so it will kind of usually come off as one piece. Then same thing on the rear, you should have 1, 2, we're actually missing 3 and 4, so 16 total. And the same thing, just work this one off as well. This panel will probably be loose since the rivet holds it in place. Just make sure it doesn't go anywhere or break. So then off, now we basically want to clean every surface. You want to clean down here, your A-pillar, and then all the way around here. Like any residue like this, extra tape, whatever, you want to get all this stuff off. All the extra original silicone, pretty much anything that can interfere with a good installation, you want off. Now, in this part, if you do find any kind of bare metal with a little bit of surface rust, clean it up, put a little paint over it. In the case of our car, it's actually pretty nice. But with these cars, because the T-tops leak, rust in these channels is extremely common. Now, if it's rusted through, then you have to look at other solutions to fix it. But if it's a little bit of surface rust, clean it, sand it a little bit, and some like POR 15 or any kind of a black paint will clean it up nice for you. Once you clean all the channels on the car, you're gonna clean the channels off the car. Those 2 C channels we removed. You wanna make sure front and back is clean. The back's usually not too bad. The front, as you can see, there's a lot of stuff. Start by using a scraper and just get some of the larger stuff off. We are going to paint this, so don't worry about scratching it at all. Part is going to be very tedious, but the more effort you put into this part, the better your installation is going to be. Don't expect to get every speck off, but again, the more you get off, the better it'll be. Now we'll clean that with some solvent and it's ready to paint. Okay, so once you get everything as clean as it's gonna get, we're ready to actually start the installation. I wanna mention these moldings. These are usually gonna be black from the factory. They'll be trim black. There's one on the back and one on the front. The rivets will hold them in place, but if they do pop off in this process, lay a little butyl tape down, that'll hold it in place until we re-rivet it. Once you have this piece back in place, if you did remove it, just use a pick. Just make sure it is all lined up for the rivets. You want to make sure these holes are clear. If they're not, you won't get a rivet in there. Okay, now the next part's gonna be pretty tricky. What we're gonna do is install the felt weather strips, and they're gonna rivet on to the front and back of the T-top section. You're gonna take what's left of the original weather strip. Hopefully it came off in somewhat one piece. It does have a metal backing though, so it's gonna get all twisted and bent up. But you're gonna use that as a template to give us an idea where to drill holes in our new pieces. Now we'll mention something on the ends over here. We'll have to cut a little relief because this piece is bent down on the end. Now this is intentionally longer than it has to be. Put this up there, you can see we have an extra probably at least 3/4 of an inch on the end there. It does give you some extra space to make sure you have everything maneuvered properly. And you're gonna do 2 holes just on the outside of this cutout. That's gonna be a place to start. So we're gonna basically line that up and work this direction. I'm just gonna mark it for now. Same thing over here on the other side. And we're gonna take it over to the car, just see how well it lines up. So basically lay it down where it goes and just lift up, make sure the holes pretty much right underneath where we're at. So now our relief over here lines up from the car. Just gonna mark the other side. You can cut this off. Cut it a little long, you can always trim it on the car. Yep. This side unfortunately ripped off. What we're gonna basically do is we know where the relief cut has to be. We're gonna mark that, and then the other hole, we'll just figure it out when we have it on the car. Again, just kind of match the original. Stuff is thin, it'll cut very, very easily. Scissors will even do it. Again, this side's gonna have to be a little more of an estimate, but figure it out again on the car. Okay, now I'm gonna drill some holes. We're basically gonna drill just little pilot holes to start. We're gonna take it over to the car again. Okay. You line it up with the hole. You want the felt to be just a hair above the molding. So that hole's centered pretty good. Okay, now we'll drill 1/8 inch holes. The holes, for the most part, are going to be centered in the flat part of the felt, so not the padded part, but the flat part. Mostly going to be centered right there. Now I need some 1/8 inch aluminum rivets. So what we're going to do, push it through the holes that we just made, and then we're going to basically test fit the molding on the car. Again, make sure we're going to kind of be right at the edge here. Keep in mind, you do have double stick tape on the back of this, so it will stick on. Again, do both sides. Make sure the alignment looks good. Okay, now try to keep it in the middle here for now. Just double stick tape on the back of this. Now, if you want to, I have seen some people actually throw some butyl in here for some extra protection. If you get this seated right, it's not usually necessary. Grab your rivet gun. We're going to start from the outside and work our way in. So once it's in place, we're going to trim these corners. We're basically going to make it even with the body molding here, because the other weatherstrip's going to come up and touch it from the bottom. So basically just bend it slightly out of the way. So trim the other side the same way, and then the exact same process for the front felt weatherstrip is going to install the exact same way the rear did. All right, now we're going to start on the door weatherstrip. Like I said, they don't make a T-top or convertible door weatherstrip. You use the same one the hardtop cars use, and you just basically cut it to fit. So what you want to do, take your original one that you saved, and then grab your new one. I'm going to give you a close-up here in a second. I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Now this is the B pillar off the weatherstrip we removed, and this is our new one. What you want to do is basically cut this to resemble this. This piece gets pushed up and gets siliconed in basically underneath the T-top channel, and it connects kind of everything together. Your T-top will overlap this, but you want to cut this to sort of match this look, and then we're going to do the same kind of idea on the other side. Now this is your A pillar. The C channel is going to actually sit on top of this here. Now, two things you can do here. You can leave it like this and basically just force it flat, or you can actually slice it kind of that way this weatherstrip is here. You see this actually got ripped where the channel sat, and it flattened out the round part, but it is still there. We're gonna leave it on. You can always slice it after the fact on the car, but if you slice it ahead of time, you're not gonna be able to go back and not slice it. So we're gonna leave it that way and see if we can get the channel on and go from there. You can see that it doesn't have to be exact. We're just gonna figure out, cut this right around that same spot. We'll make it resemble that. Now this is a metal channel, so it's not easy to cut, but we're gonna use scissors to cut up the middle first. Make sure there is no metal left. You want that top to be soft. Have an extension piece like that. And you can see how that kind of matches the look. Now this one is torn open. We may do that. We're gonna see how everything looks first, and we'll just figure that out later. Now when we come back, we will have the silicone in here, but for now, we're just gonna basically test fit this. So put it up to the end of the metal. And this just presses over the two pieces of pinched metal there. And the top of the door, bring it out right to the edge and actually push it against the market. The factory Weatherstrip, and then we'll cut this here. All right, now we're gonna test fit the T-top to body Weatherstrip, but take a look at these before you open them. They're side specific, and if you get them backwards, it's gonna really drive you nuts trying to make it work. Let me show you these labels up close. If you glance at the labels, you're gonna see an R, and most times an R at the end means right hand. Well, not in this case. They both have an R, but they are labeled right hand, left hand, and smaller letters below it. Make sure you grab the side you're working on. We're working on the driver's side, which would be left hand. So when you open up the Weatherstrip, you'll get the Weatherstrip itself, these little push pins which actually hold the Weatherstrip to the body, and you're gonna get this, which is really confusing when you look at it. This is basically just round foam. This is for filling in gaps if you need to inside the Weatherstrip. So if there's a spot inside where it's not reaching properly, basically you'll fish this inside to add some more firmness to this to make it seal properly. So we're ready to install our C channels. What we're gonna do now is take some of this foam and basically just put it on the back, again, just for more weather stripping seal. And do that for all 4 C channels. So we're starting with this channel here. Basically it's gonna go like this. What you wanna do is look at the holes you're using. Some cars will have some extra random holes for whatever reason. If they do have that, fill them with butyl before you put this on. We're gonna take our mounting screws, just poke it through the foam. Foam will actually hold it in place, but it'll give you enough play if you have to move side to side to line up with the holes. Sort of get them all lined up and then get them started. Now we're gonna put a little butyl right in this gap here. You can also pour some silicone in if you want. The butyl though will fill the edge nicely and we can get it kind of underneath there. Now we're gonna do the same thing with the A-pillar and then repeat the process on the other side. And just like in the back area here, once you have this channel on, this little gap in there, I'm gonna put some butyl in there. This area will get some silicone in it when we glue on the actual T-top to body weather strip. But we're just gonna fill the void with the butyl here. So we're ready to install the actual T-top weather strip. Again, you have this foam. This can be fished through here. Just basically tape it to a wire or something. If you do feel you need the extra strength, we're gonna put it on as it is and see how it looks before we glue it down. If we do, we can come back and install this if we have to. So the T-top to body, you can start wherever you want. I prefer to start down here at the bottom of the B pillar because it has this little clip, kind of gives you a good anchor to get started. Okay, so the roll bar will finally come in handy because I'm gonna hold the top of it over the roll bar. But yeah, that's gonna clip in there and then this will go into this channel. Start with the clip. And you want to work this into the channel. There really is no right way to do this. Usually I start by pushing it towards the inside of the channel and then push the outside in. Lay it where it goes, and we'll start working it in. While I'm doing it, I'm going to mention this because I don't even know what this is. I've actually had this for years. Some people said it might be an old school shoehorn maybe, but it's got rounded, soft edges on both sides. It's actually really nice for doing this, but any kind of a small plastic pry bar will do the job. You just don't want anything sharp enough to actually damage the rubber. And same thing here with the A-pillar. Up into the channel. You'll sort of be able to see where it's not quite seated because you'll get like little bumps. I haven't done anything with the glass weather strip yet, but this is actually a good time. You can put the glass in. These probably won't line up too well, but it's actually not that terrible. That'll actually press it into place so you can make sure everything is seated. Like I said, we're only test fitting at this point. We're gonna take it back apart. This weather strip obviously has to be replaced. We have a gap here and this is too tight here, so this would get shifted, but we're gonna replace it later anyway. We're only using this to kind of help push everything in. All right, so now we're actually gonna break out our weather strip adhesive and glue down the weather strip for the T-top to the body. Now this is a job, I recommend some gloves. If you watch our videos, you know I hate gloves, so it's gonna be messy if I'm gonna require these, but you definitely wanna use them. What we're gonna do is basically pull the ends out, and we're gonna glue there and glue in this channel. And the same thing here, glue here, and then glue in the channel. If you wanna pull this out and put some adhesive down, you can. I found as long as this is tight here and this is tight here, the glass presses that down, it's not gonna go anywhere. So the glue is honestly, in my opinion, overkill. And if you ever take it apart again, well, you saw what happened, it just falls into pieces. So again, we're gonna put adhesive here, here, and there, and we'll leave the channel do its job in the middle. So I'm gonna pull this back, basically just pop it out here. want to basically put adhesive all through here. I'm going to grab a clamp of some sort, whatever you happen to have handy. I'm going to clamp this not crazy tight, just snug enough, and give it a little bit of time to dry. And then same thing up here. Light clamping load just to get it to dry. While we're waiting for the adhesive to set up on the body to T-top weather strip, we're gonna replace the weather stripping on the T-top glass itself. There's gonna be two pieces. This piece here, which is a weather strip on the outside, and this little tiny piece here, which goes inside, and it's basically just a seal for the handle. Gotta start by removing this cover plate here. Just slides off. Don't forget about this little piece here on the other side. So the felt weather strip is basically gonna go just like this. Now I should mention this would normally have foam inside. You can actually see some glue remnants of it in the past. That foam is long gone. At some point we'll look into replacing that, but for now we'll replace this seal and then move on to the weather strip on the glass. So we're gonna use spray glue to do this. You can pretty much use any adhesive that's not gonna destroy the foam. You can even use the weather strip adhesive if you really wanted to, but that's a bit heavy for this. We're gonna put a little tape on here just to make sure we don't get it all over the trim. I'll just spray a little bit on here. If you look at the weather strip, the one end is almost like a 4-point cutout. That goes over that opening centered. So get that there. Just let that sit and let the glue set up. While that's drying, we can move on to the glass. All right, while the cover's drying, remove these two screws, one on each end. All right, now to remove this, you're probably starting to see a pattern at this point, but like everything else, it is glued and siliconed on. So get the end off here. Try to get it off in one piece, but it's probably gonna tear. All right, now you want to go back through, clean off all the old weather strip and adhesive. So once you have it clean, this weather strip's going to install like this. But what we're going to do now is just put it in and leave it loose to test fit it. We have to put it on the car because you have a little bit of front to back slide to slide on this, and we want to make sure it lines up with the weather strip that's on the car. So we're going to get it in the channel, basically to figure out where it's going to go. And then we'll put it on the car and we'll adjust front to back, get it where it needs to go, mark it, and then these will get glued down, and and the center will get glued down. All right, with the glass weather strip on, now we're gonna bring the T-top back over to the car. Basically put it down into place, and you wanna see how well this lines up. It actually lines up pretty well. I'll lock it in here. So we got rather lucky. If you actually look, we're touching in the front and we're touching in the back, so we have it centered properly. Now we can take the glass back off, mark this so we know where it goes, and then peel it back and glue it. Now we're gonna put the screws back in here. What we're gonna do is just install one side and basically use that to mark where it goes. Then we can peel it back and glue it. Now we'll put a screw in the other side. Reinstall the screw now. Make sure Weatherstrip is seated. All right, now we're gonna glue down the ends. Now from the factory, these are soaked in adhesive. We're gonna try not to use as much, but you definitely wanna make sure these don't come up. So we're gonna glue them and then clamp them. Don't worry if it spills out the sides. You kind of almost want it to. Just make sure it doesn't go over the edge. And do the same thing on the other side. So while we're waiting for the glue to dry for the Weatherstrip on the T-top glass, we're going to install these new trim pieces. These are going to go right where the originals were. These are available on our website. It'll make for a much cleaner installation. All right, now we're ready to put our glass back on the car. We're install this trim panel here. That goes through. Slide that down over that. All right, I'm gonna put it back on the car. Okay, now we're back on the car. Install the glass here. You want to press down kind of evenly. It'll grab and it'll bring itself down. Remember, new Weatherstrip, it's going to be a little bit tight. So at this point, once you repeat the process on the other side, the install of the Weatherstrip is done. Now you're not finished yet. We have one more fun part to do, and that is to align the glass. So what we're going to do now is actually put the glass up, see how far off it is, and then we'll show you how to make adjustments to align the glass properly. Before we close the door, we'll let you know the glass has adjustments basically front to back. You can control the height open and the height closed, and you can even tilt it out and in. So any adjustment you need probably will be there. But at this point, a couple things you want to be careful of. First thing is make sure you don't break the glass. If it's off too far, your Weatherstrip's too thick, which your new Weatherstripping is going to be a lot thicker than the old stuff. So make sure you don't put too much strain on the glass. If we get the door to here, we can see it's tight. You can actually watch the glass push out. In this case, the door is this close. We can close it and get an idea where we're at. So we can see we're a little tight up here and we're a little low back here. I mean, I could get my finger almost in that section. But like I said, the glass can be tilted. So we're gonna bring the front down a little bit and bring that up a little bit. We should get pretty close. So this part is gonna be tedious. You pretty much have 5 different adjustment points. You have your stop up, your stop down, and you have your tilt and your off axis stuff. So there is a lot of adjustment to getting this right. This honestly is pretty close. We're tight up here, we're too tight here, we're a little loose there, and we're actually pretty good back here. So tilting this, bringing this up a little bit, just changing that angle, and bringing this down just a hair will probably get us pretty close. But you might find yourself making many adjustments to get this right. And like I said at the very beginning of this video, T-top cars weren't that nice when they were new. The alignment of all these things was decent, but these cars leaked, they had air noises when they were brand new. So don't be disappointed, don't be dejected if you can't get it perfect. What you wanna do is get it good enough. You wanna get, this is too much of a gap. I can get my finger in there, that's too much. But as long as it's touching, like it's touching all the way to here. As long as it's touching, you're gonna be good to go. So again, you wanna take your time making the adjustments, and now we're gonna pop the door panel off and show you how to do so. So next on the list of things that are tedious and difficult with this install is gonna be adjusting the window. Again, this is something you're gonna have to take your time and you're gonna make a lot of adjustments, and we're not gonna show you every one that we're gonna make, but this will take some time to get right. And again, like everything else with this, keep in mind they weren't perfect when they were new. So you wanna get to the point that it seals and you're getting the best seal you can. And in many cases, that's gonna be good enough. Don't be worried if you can't get it perfect, because Ford didn't get it perfect. So it's gonna take some time. But basically, we're gonna show you all the adjustments on the door and how to adjust the window inside. All right, so let's talk about the adjustment points on the glass. And you've got a bunch you can do. We'll start with these two. You got 2 here and 2 here. These are stops. These are actually up right inside here. My finger's touching it. There's one there and one there. That controls basically how high the glass goes when it goes up and when it goes down. If you can see in there, there's an orange puck. We'll get you a closer shot in a second. But that puck, as it comes up, hits that stop. So this, when you loosen it, this can be raised and lowered 1/2 inch, somewhere in that neighborhood, and the same for this. So this will again control how high and how low the glass goes, but also you can turn these up and down on opposite ends a little bit to make the glass have a little bit of off-axis adjustment. The next adjustment is gonna be this bolt right here. When you loosen this, this only has maybe 1/4 inch or so of movement, maybe a little more than that, but that will allow the whole glass to go fore and aft, so front to back. So if you're touching in the front and not touching in the back, you can loosen this, and this will take this whole track and slide it back. The last adjustment is gonna be the axis adjustment, and that's gonna be these 2 bolts here and 2 more down here. So you have to bring the window down a little bit to get to them. But loosening this will allow the glass to tilt in and out a little bit, and also at angles front to back. So if the back part of your glass is not touching the weather strip and the front is, and it's at an angle like this, loosening these will allow you to tilt the glass, again, to get it to touch evenly. As far as where to start, that's gonna depend on your car. I really can't even tell you that. Usually I start with the stops, make my adjustments there. Then I go to this, make sure it's centered front to back. And then lastly, adjust these. Now these again, you have maybe 1/4 inch or so of adjustment, so it's not a lot, but small movements will make a pretty big movement in the glass. This adjustment's the trickier, so we're gonna show you that one. Basically, you wanna get them to their finger tight. You will have to bump it up a couple times because the bottom ones are harder to get to. Now, if you look, you can see, now that I have these loose, I can move the glass in and out. I can also adjust the tilt. Now the glass will tilt naturally when it goes up, but here you can get it closer to where you actually want it and then tighten it down. And again, this is going to be minor adjustments, check for fitment, minor adjustment, check for fitment. this will take a while. Now we can see here after our first adjustment, we're actually not bad here. We're tight in the front and way short up here. So again, you're just gonna have to go back through and keep making adjustments until you get it where you want it. So after about 30 or 40 adjustments, we got it pretty close. Now off camera, we're gonna spend a little more time getting this right for the customer, but this is what you want. You want the glass touching the rubber all the way around. Once you get to that point, then you can make some smaller adjustments on just getting it exactly perfect. But keep in mind, perfect doesn't exist. I've said this a bunch of times, but when it comes to T-tops, there is no such thing as perfect. You wanna get it good enough. You wanna make sure, again, the glass is touching all the rubber, and there's some spots where it's touching really hard, other spots where it might be a little bit looser. Those will be the fine adjustments you'll make towards the end. But again, this is a job that it's gonna take you a lot of time. I'm not gonna say that anybody can do this. It isn't. It is time consuming, it's tedious, there's a lot of cleaning involved, and there's a lot of just finesse stuff with this installation. So keep in mind, it will take you, give yourself a weekend to do this. This is not a Friday night install, this is not an after work install. Weekend install, if you can get some help from a friend, even better. I'm not gonna say you'll be back on the road in no time, because you probably won't. This will take some time, but if you take some time, this is something you can do yourself.